Welcome to Brutally Honest Bourbon. I'm Brandon. This is my friend Jeff. Tell you a little bit about who we are and why we started this. We wanted to create a group, that was captivating, entertaining, and build a community of guys that were just, wanting to learn more about bourbon. Um, and we want to learn from you guys as well, right? So we don't consider ourselves whiskey aficionados, if you will. Our goal is to, take you guys along with us when we do bourbon distillery tours. We'll go bourbon hunting across the country in a few different places. And then nights like tonight, where we'll sit around, we'll review a few things that we have and that we like. And so, what we commit to is, in being brutally honest, is that we're going to give you our opinion, 100% fact. Like, it's not going to be skewed by somebody else. It's our opinion, but there again, it is just that. So you may not agree with it, and if you don't, that's fine. But if you do, then hopefully you'll let us know either way. We don't want this to just be about our opinions. We want to learn from you guys, right? So we want y'all to subscribe, like, and most importantly, comment on the discussions that we're having. So I'll give you a little bit of an introduction on who we are, and I'll let Jeff tell you a little bit more about himself. But Jeff's been a whiskey and bourbon enthusiast for a lot longer than I have, many years. And his motto has always been that, whiskey's for sharing. So he began sharing with me, a couple other neighbors. It turned out to be a group of maybe 4 or 5 guys that would go over there, I don't know, maybe say 3 or 4 times a year. And Jeff would share his whiskey with us, and, it just caught fire. Personally, I've liked whiskey for a long time, but I've never really even understood the complexity, the history, or even just the beauty of it, until Jeff started sharing and educating some of us. Eventually, it grew into where we have, I think now, 15, 18 guys. We get together a few times a quarter, and we taste, bottle share, and we have a group that we just discuss things back and forth in and just educate one another. All this kind of led to me starting the study and trying to hunt down some of the allocated bottles that I never knew existed. And it just really intrigued me how the community of bourbon is. Like, the people that I've met in the past several months doing this, it's a great community of people. So that's what led to me wanting to start Brutally Honest Bourbon. And so we hope you guys enjoy it. Tonight's episode, we're going to talk a little bit about bottled in bond. So, what is bottled in bond, and why is it a thing, and what is it? So basically, if you look back on the history of whiskey, say back into the 1800s, mid 1800s, there were a lot of people making whiskey, but there was nobody policing what these guys were putting out. Many of them didn't even bottle it, right? As we know, Old Forester, they're the first people to ever bottle whiskey. But prior to that, they would have a barrel. You'd take your bottle and you'd get whatever product was there. And so there's a group of guys that's now known as the rectifiers. And what they were doing was trying to shortcut the system. And, they were selling a product that wasn't necessarily whiskey, but they were adding things like iodine, tobacco, other things to color it. I mean, all the way to the point of tobacco spit. So it got pretty rough, right? And so this led to a lot of the consumers losing faith, in whiskey altogether. So it was an economic issue for those that were really in the business, but more importantly, it was a health issue. So bourbon distillers like E.H. Taylor, James E. Pepper lobbied with Congress to put measures in place that would protect traditional whiskey distillers and then give the confidence back to the consumers that what they were buying was indeed whiskey. So, not everything's bottled in bond, but you do have versions that are bottled in bond. And so when you see that in the store, you want to understand what does that mean? So the criteria for something to be considered bottled in bond, and they can't just stamp this on any bottle. It's federally mandated. But the mandate, is that it sends the distiller through numerous rigorous hurdles. Some of that would be the spirit has to be aged for 4 years. Typical bourbon only has to be aged at a minimum of 2 years. So 4 years is what? That's time. Time's money. So if they're willing to spend that extra time and lose that money and let that bourbon sit in that barrel to age that much longer, then they care about their product, and they're wanting you to know that what they're putting out is quality product. It has to be bottled at precisely 100 proof, which is a 50% ABV. And it has to be made by one distiller at a single distillery in one season, and then aged in a federally bonded warehouse. And that bottle has to be labeled with everything on it. You can see some of the writings on there, but it'll tell you, you know, where it was done, what year the barrel was filled, what year it was bottled. It gives you all the information that you need to have the confidence as a consumer that you're getting a great product. Jeff, what does it mean to you, bottled in bond? Like when you go buy a bottle, is that one of the first things that you might would look at, or is there something else?
Well, like all whiskey is about what tastes good, what makes you happy, what experience whiskey the way that you like it. And there's so many expressions out there, one of which is bottled in bond. Bottled in bond has come on the scene, especially over the last 5 years. And I view that label as a step up. Typically, many of the brands have just a regular expression of whiskey out there. And then when you see bottled in bond, that's saying, hey, this is aged a little longer, more rigorous conditions, and things like that. So your expectations go up a little bit about the quality of the whiskey. So you might have a whiskey that you're very familiar with, an Evan Williams, a Heaven Hill. And when you see that bottled in bond, you know that, well, this is a better barrel of that. Probably it's a better sip. So because of that extra investment in time and bonding and all the rigor that goes into it, it's probably going to cost a little bit more than the regular expression. So it's a pointer that maybe the quality is a tad higher.
Good point. Good point. So what we're going to do tonight is, you know, we took a few of what we had on hand. Obviously, not all of them, but we're just going to compare them against one another. And there's not much that these have in common across the board, other than the fact that they're bottled in bond. So they're going to be different, different ages. They're going to be different, obviously different flavors, different manufacturers. And basically, we're gonna try them one by one, and we'll give you guys, you know, our feedback, our thoughts on what we think about each one. Jeff, I think that I've got these lined up maybe a little different than I wanted to try them. I think we'll try the Evan Williams bottled in bond. So price sticker still on that bottle, but a $19 bottle. And guys, for a daily sipper, you're not going to find a better whiskey for $19. So it is a daily go-to, and it's very affordable.
It's great for mixing in cocktails.
Absolutely. Speaking of cocktails, so Jeff has an old-fashioned recipe that I think you guys might be interested in, and we'll share that with you sometime. If it is something that you're interested in, you know, leave us a comment and we'll get back to you. So typically when we do a pour, we're gonna let it air, right, for just a little bit. Let it sit, air out. Good thing for me, I like once a bottle's been open for a little bit and coming back to it. When you open a bottle fresh, sometimes that neck pour can be a little bit more stout. But you know, there's been times I've sipped on a bottle and man, I really don't think I care for that, and it'll sit for 2 or 3 months, and I'll come back to it, and then I'm like, man, I think I really do like that. Jeff and I were talking today about, you know, day to day. Monday, I went out and did some bourbon hunting, did a few pours at one of the stores, fell in love with Rooster's Buzzard's Roost. And it's a cigar rye, and it just blew my socks off. And I told Jeff, you know, I tried it again yesterday, and I felt like my nose was off a little bit. My palate was off a little bit. It was still good, but it just didn't give me that wow factor. So that's another thing I think I like about whiskey is it's evergreen, it's changing, and I think your palate just changes with time even.
That's right, bottle to bottle, things change. You get a bottle that blows you away, and you think I found it, and you go back, and the next bottle you get, it's okay. It just doesn't blow you away the same. But that's the whiskey journey, and that's what we enjoy sharing about it. It's
absolutely, it's
kind of some spice to life, the unexpected and the journey. It's about that.
So Jeff, I'm thinking it's oaky. It's sweet. I mean, you can literally taste it off the nose almost.
Yeah.
And there again, I mean, keep it relative. That's a $19 bottle.
There's a little bit of alcohol smell to it.
It is. It is. I'll go to the palate on that. I mean, for my first sip of the afternoon, that's pretty smooth.
It's pretty smooth, and it's got really good flavor.
It does have good flavor. And you know, that's the thing. I have people ask me, "What's the smoothest whiskey?" And you know, for me, it's not necessarily about how smooth it is. It has to be relative. So if something's a higher proof and it drinks that proof, meaning it does have that hug or that burn, for me, the flavor has to match it, right? So I don't want to drink something that's hot and then I get no reward out of it.
Right.
But I also do like some of the ones that maybe don't drink up to their proof. You know, you have a 110 or 115, and maybe it drinks like a 100, 105. That's solid, guys. That's solid.
It's not overly complex. Normally, on the lower price points, you don't expect things to be as complex, but it's still a good whiskey, even if it was a one-noter, which this isn't exactly a one-noter, but it's got a good fundamental flavor that makes it an enjoyable sip, and that's fine too. That's part of the experience. You don't always have to be drinking a $1,000 bottle of whiskey.
Sure.
And it goes on for days and days and days, and rolling out the flavors and the complexity and everything.
I think I almost enjoy sometimes. You know, you have the higher end bottle and you try it, and then you come back and try something that's lower end that shouldn't even be in the same lineup, and it outdrinks it.
That's right.
But then again, that's circumstantial to my palate or your palate or whomever, right?
There's one I didn't bring tonight that I've got that's kind of a classic. Mellow corn whiskey, bottled in bond.
Okay.
And it's primarily a corn whiskey. It's yellow in color. It looks like a cheap whiskey, and it is. It's, like I said, $14 a bottle or something like that when you can find it. But it's kind of a classic, and it's good quality, and it's got a consistent flavor and it's smooth for what it is. It's a corn whiskey.
So is it a bright yellow label, or am I mistaken?
It is.
Okay. I want to say that I've either seen it at your house or maybe on a shelf.
I've got it. But it's bottled in bond.
That's crazy, huh?
Yeah.
And that's another thing that I find strange. So you have a lower end bottle, it's cheap, it's affordable, but yet it's went through all the rigorous steps that all the higher end bottles have gone through as well, which you would think higher end sales have more capital, they can sit on it longer, but you know, for a cheaper whiskey to have sat that long, that's respectful, I think.
Sure.
So tell us about the McKenna. I know you brought the McKenna over. I've had it maybe once. I don't even remember it, but
well, it's a 10-year-old expression, first of all, so it's been aged 10 years plus, and it's been well recognized in the whiskey community as something that is worthy. It won a double gold medal in San Francisco several years ago now. When it first came out, it was $35 a bottle, and you could find it around, and it was on a lower shelf, and people didn't know what they had. But once it got discovered, it took off, and now it's regularly selling for $70 a bottle, and it's a little bit harder to find, but it's on the allocated list in Alabama where we are.
Always a great thing. Let me give you a pour of that. And like I said, like across the board, these things, only biggest thing they have in common is the fact that they're bottled in bond, because something like this might only be a 4 or 5 year product, which we know every one of them has to be at least 4 years.
So this is a lot smoother on the nose than the Evan Williams, just from the get-go, but that's the nose.
It's interesting sometimes how that can be different, right? Like I've had them be light on the nose and really powerful on the palate, and I've had them powerful on the nose and kind of light on the palate.
That's right.
Maybe you pick up certain things on the nose and it doesn't really transpire over to the palate. It is a lot smoother on the nose. So just me thinking, you've got a bottle that's a little bit more full here. Hadn't auctionized as much maybe as this one. This bottle's probably been open for about 4 months, 3-4 months. How long do you think that bottle might have been open?
More than a year.
Okay. So, I mean, I think that has something to do with it, but also the quality of the product, right? A 10-year product is going to be.
Right. It's got a light consistency. It's got a good color, but it's a lighter color
Oh, man.
for a whiskey.
Oh, man. That's nice.
Mm.
Huh? That's nice.
Mm-hmm.
And not even apples to apples right there, That has
Glides right over your tongue.
Yeah. A lot more complexity. It's buttery, sweet, mild on the oaky. I'm picking up some fruit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, man. Wow.
Very different experience.
Absolutely.
Definitely see why it was well rewarded and awarded.
Man, yeah. I think I might need to add that one to the bar now. You got me thinking. But then again, I wonder what that was like on the neck pour versus now, because I've had them where I've had some that were just right off the neck pour, really good. I had an Old Forester 1924 the other day, fresh pop in the glass, let it rest 10 minutes. It's a 10-year-old product, and I feel like I probably shouldn't have let it rest at all. It was great.
I don't think there's an age statement on the Evan Williams, is there?
I didn't see one, no, so I'm just assuming 4 to 5 years.
Yeah.
We know it has to be, right, 4 years, so. Line those up in case I need to reuse them. I really like the McKenna.
Not bad.
Makes you wish you could find it a little cheaper than $70, but I tell you, it's.
I think in some states you can.
Well, I think I have seen it in Louisiana on some of the hunts, but it was still high 50s tax plus it'd be $60 out the door, guaranteed. So the next one I'm pretty excited about. So this is Angel's Envy. And Fred Minnick did a review on this one, and I immediately went to the website and tried to get it, and was lucky enough to get it. But let's think about it for a minute, right? This is an Angel's Envy that is not finished in a port wine barrel or any other type of barrel, and that's been their MO forever. So this is the first that they've not finished in another type barrel. But oddly enough, it's a cask strength bottled in bond. How do we do that? Like, how do you get a cask strength and it be 100 proof exactly? So they wrote a letter to Fred Minnick, and they basically said that when they barreled this, they had barrels that lost some proof, which is fairly odd to happen, and you don't want to see that as a bottler or a distiller. And then they had some that basically stayed about par for the course, and then they had a few that rose. Once they mixed these barrels, they got exactly 100 proof. So it still stayed true to all the criteria. It was still done in one season by one distiller at one location, aged in a bonded warehouse. But they took these barrels at cask strength, meaning they didn't add anything to it. It's just the whiskey. They didn't have to water it down, and they got it at bottled in bond. So I was real excited to get this bottle. You had to get it at the distillery only, and we're headed up there this weekend, and I hope to get a couple more bottles of it.
That's a 375 size.
Correct.
Right. That's the only size they sell that one in, as I understand.
Just the 375, correct. And I think I have grabbed the wrong one. I have one that's unopened and one that is open. So give me 1 second. A little difference between the two. I was like, I thought I had drank more of it than that. I think you'll be surprised with this one, Jeff. It really is. I mean, Angel's Envy in general is good, but
that's right.
This one.
I'm already an Angel's Envy fan.
I don't know if you watched Fred's review on it. I almost hope that you haven't, because I want to know if his review skewed me on nose and flavor. He had a positive review. I'll go ahead and say that, but the flavor profile that he picked up, to me, hit exact. He was right on. So I'd like to see what you pick up off of it.
So you're talking about Fred Minnick. Fred, being one of the people that has been blogging about whiskey for a long, long time, he's one of the most respected experts who's usually involved in the high level reviews that
Absolutely.
happen every year. If anybody needs a judge that really has been exposed to a lot of whiskey, it's Fred.
Absolutely.
So somebody we look up to and we pay attention to what he says.
It doesn't hurt any that he's right there in Kentucky either.
No. And we thank him for his service.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'm gonna say that I'm picking up a little different than what I picked up before, but it's still similar.
Also smooth. Is there an age statement on it?
You're gonna ask me without my glasses on, sir. Let me grab my specs. Can you see better than I?
Distillery Series. Don't really see anything.
No, but I do have a flavor profile card on it. Let's see if it says anything.
Smooth.
So it says they blended 27 low proof and 2 high proof barrels to get exactly the 100 proof without adding 1 drop of water. I don't see an age statement on it though. So what are you thinking there?
Smooth. It's got a nice flavor to it. It's got a good consistency.
Oh yeah.
Really nice color. I tend to think of Angel's Envy as typically being a little bit light on the color and not a thick, viscous sip, but still pleasant.
So Fred said he picked up peach butter.
That's what I remember.
Peach pie, peach cobbler, that kind of thing. And I'm still picking that up. It's heavier on the butter and the brown sugar for me right now, but it's light on the peach side, and that could be skewed by the other pours maybe.
And that's one of the things about reviews is when you hear somebody else talking about flavor components, sometimes that lights a little spark in you to look for that.
That's right.
And I definitely detect the peach, but I don't know if it would have dawned on me that that's what I was experiencing. But it's there.
It is there.
That's a good pour. Definitely.
That's something that I'm trying to learn better. And if you guys have, pointers on that, I know some guys have kits out that help you develop your palate and whatnot. I'm interested in those as well. But that's something that I want, because there's flavor profiles that I pick up on certain things that I can't really call what that is. What is that? I really like it. What is it? Some of them I'm learning, but there's so many more to pick up.
But there's not always a right answer.
That's correct too.
It's whatever you feel and experience as a flavor component, what you relate it to, because there's some really interesting terms out there that people use when they're trying to dig for what is that I'm experiencing in a sip. And there's some really weird things. I mean, there's the common things, baking spices and buttery and things
leathery.
Like that, leathery. But every once in a while, you'll hear them say furniture polish, or
I've heard that. That doesn't sound
dusty or funky, things like that. And even when those flavor components are present, it's not always a bad thing, but it tends to hit the nail on the head with what you're experiencing sometimes as you're letting that taste roll over your tongue and trying to figure out what is that. I recognize that's flavor. Right. So,
and the dusty is something I haven't picked up yet, but I haven't drank what you would consider a dusty either. Had a buddy of mine ask me the other day, coming back to what you were saying just a second ago. He's like, "Man, what what's the right way to drink whiskey? Like, I'm so confused. And I told him, I said, man, the proper way to drink whiskey, I was like, now listen, you got to really pay attention here because it's a science to it. You drink whiskey the way you like it. I don't care if you like it with Coke, like it over ice, you like it neat, you like it in a plastic cup. You drink whiskey the way you like it. You
That's
bought
right.
it, you enjoy it, right?
Yeah.
So the E.H. Taylor is yours, and I'll let you explain a little bit more about that. But obviously that hits home because we were just talking about Bottled and Bond, and he being one of the first to lobby against starting the Bottled and Bond. He wanted it.
Lobby for.
He lobbied for it. Lobbied against the guys that were flavoring the whiskeys and whatnot, right?
Right.
So that's I think that's pretty respectful to have that available, and I'm glad you brought it over. But give us a little bit of background on that one.
Well, E.H. Taylor is one of the more allocated ones that's a little bit harder to get, harder to find. The price tends to be up there. It's appreciated in the whiskey community. Again, we'll talk about things like that, things that are appreciated in the whiskey community, and then when you try it, you might go, I don't see what the big deal is, and that's okay. That's what we're about. Totally brutally honest.
That's it.
And it piques our interest when we hear about reviews on whiskey that sound like it's our flavor profile or it's something that we would appreciate. And there's many times I've listened to reviews or done research over many reviews to find out something that sounds good, and then when I got a chance to buy a bottle, I got it, and I might not experience the same thing that I was seeing in those reviews. So
That's true. That's true.
you need to realize that in your whiskey journey, that's perfectly okay. And you set your expectations high. If Fred Minnick says it's a great whiskey and you try it, and you might not like it. And that's totally cool. He even thinks that's totally cool. So find what you like. Find what you like to do and drink and what you sip and gives you pleasure. And that's the one you need to get. But if you're like us, chances are you're going to buy some bottles along the way that come highly recommended, and you might say, yeah, it's okay, or it's good whiskey, and you recognize the quality in it, but you might still say, that's not something I got to have.
That's right.
But the journey is figuring that out. Check things out, what appeals to you. And like you've heard us say earlier in the review today in the show, that you might open it one day and not care for it, or you might be blown away by it, either end of the spectrum. Yeah. And the next day, or the next week, or the next month,
totally
when you open it again, totally different whiskey experience. So many of us that have shared whiskey have bragged on a bottle that we think is, the bee's knees, and people come over and they try it and they're like, you see them smiling and nodding their head, but they're not emoting like you felt about that bottle. And that's okay. That's being brutally honest, and that's what we're about.
Yeah, I totally respect it. And like you said, I think I have a habit of overselling a bottle. I get really excited really quick on stuff that I like, and I'm quick to tell everybody and even guys on the page that, hey, you need to try this one. But there again,
okay.
You got to respect the fact that not everybody's gonna have the same flavor profile as you, or like you said, the very next day you may not have. So I tell you, early on, in which I haven't been hunting and doing this very long on the allocated stuff, but I got really caught up on bottles. What is the coolest looking bottle, whatever it is. I want it because that bottle looks cool, or I want it because I saw it on somebody's shelf in a video. And what I've learned is the bottle don't mean a darn thing unless you just want the bottle. Like, it's about the juice. Is the juice in that bottle worth the squeeze? Is that worth the money that you're paying for it? And so now that's what I'm doing. I'm trying to use my resources and you guys to tell me that, hey, that juice is really good. And then I try it, and that's when I learned, hey, I like that one, but I like what's in the bottle because I'm buying them to drink, right? I don't have the money or the desire to just have one sit on the shelf and something happened to me and somebody else ended up drinking it. So,
hey, I'm picking some cherry up off the nose.
I did too.
I wasn't expecting that.
No, I'm getting it
and I like
pretty strong. It's sweet. It's really nice on the nose. Like,
And I'm gonna be honest, the only E.H. Taylors that I've had are the ones that you've offered. I haven't had any outside of that.
Mm.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. You definitely get cherry.
Yeah. I like it.
It's sweet. It's buttery. Like it coats your tongue. Like it's not as viscous as some of the ones that I've had, but it's nice. I like that.
Just a light burn.
Yeah. Well, there again, for me, if the flavor matches or exceeds, I'm okay with that, right?
Yeah.
So that the flavor way exceeds that in my opinion.
I like ice. I like a cube of ice in my sippers typically,
I do too.
but this is one that I think I might be able to do without a cube.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Straight.
Yeah. We'll be trying to add that one
Mm,
to the shelf, Jeffrey.
that's a good one. I actually think I picked that one up in Kentucky. on
That's
road.
what it is. All
on
whiskey
road
has
trip.
to be made in Kentucky, right? Like that's why it's better. I was reading on that too, because a lot of people think, man, it can't be bourbon if it's not made in Kentucky. And really and truly, when the settlers landed and started making whiskey, they started making it there to preserve the corn that they were wasting. And then it just turned out to be a better product because of the land, right? Because of the water sources that they had, the soil sources that they had to grow the corn. And you know, I was telling my wife the other day, I was like, one of the things that I love about bourbon is the organic part of it. Like, just think about how organic bourbon is. So this will probably sound corny and nerdy to you guys, but so you have the soil. You use the soil to grow the corn and the tree, right? So the tree's cut down and you make your barrel out of the white oak for the bourbon. The corn's grown from the earth. All the grain that's added to it on the backside, it has to be 51% corn, is from the earth. The water that's used is part of the land, right? So it's run over rocks, it's filtered. So if you find an area like Kentucky that has all of that together, once you get it all put in the barrel, it's organic. There's nothing added to bourbon other than water. You can't add flavoring or anything else to it. You char the barrel and you get what you get. But the fact that it's that organic just really excites me.
That's a nice pour. That
is nice.
100
I've got
proof.
that on the list for sure.
So that's right in the middle of what typically you get proof wise.
What is the age on it? Do you know?
Let's see if it says anything. It says they'd love to hear from their customers, but doesn't specifically say.
It says distilled, aged, and bottled, which is a great thing to hear. I'm not saying I'm against MGP or sourced juice. I think that's a great thing, and I think MGP does a great job with theirs. But there's a lot of respect for somebody that does it from grain to glass, right?
Well, E.H. Taylor claims to do it right. They've been doing it for a long time. They have a great reputation, and it's a good pour.